Hello and welcome back to Spellhaven, a place where we can learn to run D&D together. My name is Jaren, and tonight I'm beginning a new chapter in the D&D Behind the Scenes series because we have a new campaign coming up, folks. I did take some time off because, well, we were running Spelljammer Light of Xerxes, and we ended up putting that on the shelf. It just wasn't the campaign for me or for my group. I think we all collectively came to a point where we went, yeah, we've gotten what we want out of it, and I think we were all just hanging in there because we thought everyone else was really enjoying it. We did tell some interesting stories, and I may do a full review of Light of Xerxes at some point because I think it's always better to review something after you've experienced it. It just had some shortcomings that I think it ultimately ended up helping me make some important decisions and learn a little bit about what kind of story I want to tell. So that being said, there was also some time off since the last time I did any of these because I discovered it's just really, I thought I was going to commit to running something and making a video every week, but clearly now how obvious that's not going to work because we're just running our own home game, you know? As you might imagine, not every week D&D happens. Life comes up, schedules happen, people are sick, people are tired, people just aren't in the right frame of mind to play D&D, or just whatever happens, you know, just sometimes it's not in the cards to have a session that night. So it took some time off to figure out what I wanted to do. And now knowing that we have this next campaign coming up, I thought this would be a good time to jump back into it. I also have some other ideas for other D&D related content that isn't simply reviewing of stuff that's coming out. So without further ado, this is going to be the first of several videos leading into the start of the campaign. I've never run a completely homebrewed D&D campaign before. I've run written adventures. We started off with Storm King's Thunder at the beginning of COVID, ran Rime of the Frost Maiden, and that was beloved by myself and all of my players. It was such a joy. It was where I fell in love with running D&D. We did a little bit of Light of Xerxes, Spelljammer Light of Xerxes, and then most recently, and obviously with all those campaigns, there's going to be some homebrew that you have to make because you want to be a good DM and go the directions that your players go. They don't always stick to what's in the source material, so you have to make up some stuff. But most recently, I had such a joy, such a fun running it was a 2-session one-shot that was an epilogue to our Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign. And it was such a joy to go back to that setting, those characters, and really put a nice bookend on that story. It felt really good, and I thought, this is what I should be doing. You should be running D&D that you're excited about. If you're not excited about what you're running, find something else to run. Run something that really gets you hyped and excited to run it. As I discovered, since my enthusiasm for Spelljammer was beginning to wane, so too were my players' excitement. And as I was running this one-shot for Rime of the Frost Maiden, I was bouncing out of my skin excited to run it, and that really reflected and came off with my players too. So we're going to be running a campaign where that's all we do, because that sounds like a lot of fun, and I have some ideas of what I want to do. And now having run multiple Wizards of the Coast published adventures, I kind of have an idea of what I do and don't need to start a campaign. I don't need to know the big ending. I don't need to know what the big bad is. Sure, that can help at the start of the campaign. You can start to, you know, seed and foreshadow some things, give some clues even really early on. But I think one of the main mistakes in those campaigns, in those adventures, was revealing the big bad way too early, because then you have this almost built-in clock, this built-in timer, you know, where, yeah, you have a big open world section in most campaigns, but if players know that, hey, there's this big problem, world-ending problem we have to deal with at some point, and it's kind of coming, that's kind of where their mind's at. And they're going to look at every possible side quest as, does this help me solve that big bad ending? Which, you know, it might work for some campaigns, but it also, I kind of feel like it makes it so that you can't go off and do some other fun stuff because you have this ticking time bomb of a BBEG that you found out in session 1. Big major problem in Storm King's Thunder, by the way. So I know I don't really need that. What I ultimately need is a starting town, a starting conflict, and maybe a couple other things on the outskirts of that. maybe some factions, some shop names, some NPCs that people could meet in the early session or two. I'm a big fan of the spiral design, meaning I don't need to know everything. I need to know like maybe the first session and the next two possibly sessions. And from there, whatever the characters want to do, that's the direction we're going to go. And that's what we're all going to sort of tell the story together with. I'm not coming with a whole list of prepared adventures for them to do where we're kind of like forcing it in a direction. I'm just presenting them with some early problems, and wherever they go, that's what we're going to do. So I'm starting tonight with, I have some ideas and I finally got to jot them down. So I'm not writing these completely from scratch tonight. In future episodes of this series, for running this next campaign, it may be a little bit, let's jot down notes as we think of them in the video. But tonight I have some ideas and I've tried to organize them a little bit. I know it's going to be a little bit hodgepodge because I still have about a month and a half. We're going to be starting this the end of January, having given everybody some time for the holidays and rest and all that stuff. So let's dive in. I'm still doing this in the Forgotten Realms setting, mainly because that's what I've been running the last 3.5 years. And it's the setting that I am beginning to be pretty familiar with. Of course, it's impossible to know everything in the Forgotten Realms. There's many things that I've just not consumed or played or been a part of. I started my Forgotten Realms journey with Storm King's Thunder, and now it's just kind of expanded from there. So I don't have the luxury of having played a bunch of Forgotten Realms style games other than Baldur's Gate 3. So there's just a lot of gaps in my Forgotten Realms knowledge, but it is the setting that I know the most. So we're starting there. I am calling this campaign tentatively Unremembered Worlds. It's just my little play on words because I'm making this like an alternate universe of the Forgotten Realms setting. Forgotten Realms, Unremembered Worlds, just a stupid play on words. So I'm starting with a couple premises, some things that I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to do in this campaign. Number one, I want to write a campaign where the gods are more like mortals. They walk amongst you and I, and they're just beings that you can go talk to, and they're way more accessible. And I know that's not a novel idea, but it's one that I want to explore because for too long, and this works sometimes, the traditional 5e way of communicating with your chosen patron divinity. There's some spells that can do it. You can just straight up have your character pray to them in the middle of the night. There's some higher level spells. Roll a D100. Let's see if you roll low enough, or let's see if you roll when you try to ask some questions. And then it's like, yeah, okay. You want to contact Saluna. A beam of moonlight pierces the cloudy night sky and illuminates this rune, and you get a warm feeling, and it gives you this sense of positivity, giving you an affirmative for the question that you asked. Or you try to petition Shantea, the Earth Mother. This warm breeze blows across you, and you feel very content and satisfied, as if she's saying yes. And like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of boring and stale. So I'd like to have a setting where you can just go talk to them. It's somebody that you can just straight up have a conversation with. And from here, as with anything that I do when I'm making homebrew content, I start with an idea and then I work backwards and go, okay, well, why is that? And then why did that happen? What's the reason for all of that? And you kind of work backwards and grow it out from there. So I started here and had some questions like, well, like, why are the gods walking amongst mortals, you and I? Is this just the way it is? Why is it this way? The thing that I came to was, I like this idea that maybe it's a punishment for something the gods did, and they're being sequestered and punished by being walking amongst mortals. So I thought, what if during Karsa's folly, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's a whole thing where back in the Netherese days, the ancient flying cities of Netheril, a high, powerful wizard named Karsus attempted to use these 10th level spells back when you could do that to basically take over the power of Mistral, the goddess of magic. She was called Mistral back then. In order to prevent that from happening, she severed she severed herself from the weave, effectively killing her, destroying magic for a time, preventing Karsus from doing that, and then was reborn again as Mystra, and effectively saved magic. And I thought, well, what if a bunch of other gods had to intervene in that as well? And maybe what Karsus was going to do, all the gods knew this, and knew that it would have destroyed everything. It would have destroyed reality as everybody knew it. It was a threat not only to Mistral and magic, but to everything. And the gods, coming to a point where they so loved their mortal followers that they were willing to break the code, the divine code of you can do a lot of things, give your followers power, answer their prayers, communicate with them sort of indirectly, but you can't directly step in and intervene. And what if, because of that action, this overgod Ao said, that's, not cool, we're not having that. And if you so love these mortal followers that much, we're going to make this new reality and you're going to walk amongst them. You're not going to have all your powers, but you're going to go be amongst your mortal followers that you so love dearly. It's a punishment. And because of this action, they are no longer allowed to talk about that. They're reduced in power. And now, for instance, somebody like Shantea, this Earth Mother, this is also kind of what I wanted to do. Maybe she appears like this really cliche hippie girl. I think that would be kind of funny and awesome. With the tinted glasses, and she just is super chill, and life is just constantly sprouting around her in the woods. I think that would be neat. And maybe Mystra, goddess of magic, maybe she owns this like joke magic shop down the street. I think that could be super fun too. And she's kind of hiding in plain sight. She has powers, but it's not really obvious. And she maybe not so obvious about hiding her identity either. Stuff like that I think would be kind of fun to play into. The second part of this premise, this punishment that I wanted to explore, I like the idea of weird things happening in the world and making the players go, huh, that's not supposed to happen. Why is that happening? These weird anomalies in reality. And I thought I could tie it to this first premise, such that maybe something, when at the moment that these gods were sequestered and put away in this alternate reality, they tried to throw a divine wrench in the spokes of Ao to try to prevent this from happening. Obviously weren't successful, but maybe they just did it out of spite and desperation. And now all these weird anomalies are happening. Tears in the fabric of reality. Time stops very briefly. There's just weird voices that you hear every now and then, that sort of thing. And I'll get into it when I go over some other notes here. But just some things that make the characters go, wait, that's not supposed to happen. We maybe should look into that. Second premise for this campaign, this is a more concrete idea. For the start of the campaign, I thought it would be super fun to start by setting it up to make it look like the characters are guilty of murdering a high-ranking official. Maybe somebody like the king, or a high clergy member, maybe like the high-ranking court wizard, stuff like that. Mainly because of my frustration with the way that a lot of WotC adventures begin. It's really typical for WotC adventures to start with you're just hanging around town, or you're adventurers traveling up the path. You see an abandoned town and you go to investigate, and someone comes out and is like, hey, we were attacked by goblins. Will you please, go and kill the goblins in the cave? We'll pay you 50 gold. And it's sort of like, yeah, you're adventurers. You're here to do adventures. You're here to make money. So sure, we'll go and do that thing for you, but it's really impersonal and kind of bland. And you end up oftentimes having to kind of rewrite a little bit of that to make it a little bit more, make characters a little bit more invested in that idea. Or maybe it's, they're just going to a town and they see a posting on a job board. Again, not the most exciting thing, doesn't really get you invested. A better way to do something like that is have players start in the town, get to know some of the players, some of the NPCs in the town, really get to know them, get to like them, and then you have the attack happen. And then these beloved NPCs go crashing to the floor, unconscious. Maybe they make it, maybe they don't. And now the characters actually care about it. So I want to do something where they start by being smack in the middle of the action, and it becomes this weird murder mystery where you have to figure out, like, well, you have like two or three things, right? If this is the case, if we set this up to make them look like they're guilty and they're really not, you've got some action items. You have to a get out of Dodge, get someplace safe, and B, figure out who did it, and hopefully clear your name with the rest of the townsfolk. I think that could be really interesting. So I built some ideas based on that. I'm going to go over that just a second here. Let's go back. I've sort of started organizing my notes. Premise. Ideas is just a whole hodgepodge of ideas as they come to me. It's basically the repository for everything that's not really organized yet. As you can see, there's just a bunch of notes of stuff. Some of these things I've actually put into other pages, so I'm not going to go terribly in depth here. Let's see what next. I did have an initial NPC, and I guess this should kind of be factions. So that's kind of our initial conflict is, go and figure this out. And so we can sprinkle in possible, little not one shots, but little combat encounters is what I was looking for in there, depending on, where they end up going. This is still things that I need to flesh out. I'm not ready for session 0 right now. I do need, actually, let's go to NPCs. I did have my first NPC that I thought of. Not here, it is here. I don't have a picture yet, but I thought of this character named Riven Thoreau. I'm also stealing a bunch of names from other games that I'm playing because it's way easier to steal cool names from other content rather than, I'm terrible at coming up with legitimate cool sounding names. So I'm stealing stuff from Warcraft, actually Hearthstone, because I'm a Hearthstone player. So Riven Thoreau is this super old guy, high archivist of this group called the Azurite Society, he's sort of a scholar and has been looking into these anomalies for a number of decades. And so he might be a good source of information for helping characters figure out what's going on. And has a clockwork cat because I like that idea and I think that's cool. Let's go back. No, campaign overview. By the way, Notion, fantastic place to keep track of your session notes. I've been using this for a few years now, and it's just fantastic. Factions. This is probably pretty important as well. Aside from your typical Forgotten Realms factions, I have some of my own. A group called the Boreal Wilders. This is actually inspired by this electronic track I'm really into, as well as some of the fiction from the master Brandon Sanderson himself. Some of the content, some of the things that I've read, I went, that's really cool. I like that. I'd like to see more of that. And it kind of dawned on me in preparation for this campaign. Hey, I can just use everything I ever thought was really cool in D&D and make it my own thing. I can kind of take it, twist it around, and just do the things that I think are really cool. And that should work. So, Boreal Wilders. Boreal is a word that means northern, in case you don't know. This group that lives on the outskirts, they don't speak common, so communication is going to be a challenge. They wear these wooden masks painted with expressions. And like I was mentioning before about these anomalies, their shaman leader, they kind of worship this shamanistic leader that they think is holding at bay this weird, strange tear in reality itself. And that's why they kind of hold him in the highest regard. Really, this thing just kind of ends on its own after like half a minute. But they don't know that, and he's probably playing that up a little bit because he realizes he's not really controlling it either. That's one anomaly and one group. This forest dwelling group that I don't have a name for, maybe they worship this oracle. And I thought of this word, the word Driscoll. It's a title that means descendant of the messenger. So I may use that as like a title for this oracle. Sorry. This oracle hears a voice centered on this tree deep in the forest. And from this voice, all the tenets of this religion are formed and made. Really, what this oracle is hearing is a crossing of these two worlds, the unremembered worlds and the forgotten realms. They're hearing a conversation from another reality itself. Something, probably just some mundane conversation in, a royal court or something like that. And they're taking it as these high tenets of a religion, these commandments of how to live your life. And it's just mundane conversation. I think could be fun. Lastly, and this is probably going to be like an initial conflict, is this idea that is sort of stemmed from a character idea that I had that I'd still like to play at some point, but it's all based on part of the backstory of this character deals with this gem mine that they had found, and sold to the government, and then bad stuff happened. So this gem mine is the source of power and guarded by these things called the incarnates. This is something directly out of this book that I have not yet used, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. It's got some great stuff in here. The artwork's fantastic. I can't comment on any of the adventures because I never ran any of them. However, the idea that stuck out to me the most when I first read through this was this idea of the incarnates. If you've not read through Radiant Citadel, the incarnates are basically they're like the ancient ancestors, the all-knowing souls of the deceased, that form in these crystals, these collective crystals. Some of them are simple as like a small plant. Others are like 12-foot tall tigers and stuff like that. So I'm pulling from that idea of the Radiant Citadel, as they are the guardians of this gem mine. And this is part of this big conflict. They're the ones that are taking revenge on royalty for coming in and digging into the things that they are the guardians of. So this is kind of how they're going to have to go and solve this problem. The players are going to have to solve this problem and see that it's not simply a, hey, bad guy does bad things because guy bad. I think much more commonly, you're going to see sort of a little bit of a moral gray area where, yeah, hey, it is bad to murder somebody, but they have reasons for doing this. And it's because, well, the government was doing some bad things in the first place and maybe infringing upon some stuff that really rightfully wasn't theirs at all. So that's kind of, and I have this whole story in my head about this ghost in the lighthouse. It was the deceased wife of the character that I wanted to play. As she kind of got trapped in this gem mine and the government came in and started mining it and didn't tell anybody when they were going to do it. They just did it. So I have this idea of a ghost in the lighthouse because I like lighthouses and I want to put it in a game. What else here? So those are my 3 starting factions. I'll probably add more to this as I think of it. Again, I have like a month and a half, as it is currently December 3rd. Let's go back a page. Do I have anything else? Yeah, so my to-do list is 1 item at the moment. I know that I need to make a starting town or pick a starting town. I'm still searching on the maps of the Forgotten Realms to figure out what I want to do, where I want to start. I know probably I don't want to start in a really big town because I think that would be just a bit too much to manage for level 1 and for myself starting out in a brand new campaign. So nothing like Neverwinter, nothing like Waterdeep, even though Waterdeep is extremely fascinating and I had a lot of fun learning the lore when I ran Storm King's Thunder. And no Baldur's Gate, even though Baldur's Gate is cool. I'm not trying to run the game that we all recently, most of us, played through and love so much. I'll take inspiration from it for sure, but I don't want to start in Baldur's Gate. I want to run my own campaign and start in a smaller town. So I'm still kind of on the search for that. Again, I got time. And that's kind of not the most important thing either. Lastly, is I have my session 0 questions. As you can imagine, it might be a little bit difficult to just have everyone start in the same spot. The way that I'm setting this up, if I'm actually setting them up to be framed for these murders, It's going to be a challenge, and I don't want to force players to be like, okay, you all have to be Kingsguards, or you all have to be assistants to the mage, stuff like, or you all have to work for work in the church. I don't want to do that. I'm going to let them pick, but I will ask them stuff like, hey, tell me about your connection to the court, to the clergy, to the local wizard. So I know, and I can tailor these session zeros, which I'll probably have to do individual session zeros so that I can, I'm imagining, as this happens, they're kind of being framed for this stuff. They all kind of have to scatter and run, and that's when they kind of run into each other in the middle of town. So I'll probably have to do individual session zeros, but to know, like, hey, what's your relationship? How do you feel about them? How do you feel about the court, clergy, and wizard? Is it somebody that you look up to? Do you work for them? Are you hoping to gain audience with the wizard because you're trying to, start to develop your arcane skills? Is it someone that you don't respect at all? And I can kind of develop some motivation from that. I want to have my players help me build this town. Help me, color in the details. So tell me, who do you know in the starting town? What do they do there? What's the name of the shop they work at or own, or are they retired and now they're just funding adventurers like yourself? Do you know someone in the Thieves Guild? Are you in the Thieves Guild? Do you travel alone usually, or are you with other people? So, for example, I know, hey, you're part of the Thieves Guild, or you're part of the Crown's Guard. You've got people that are watching your back, or maybe looking for you to slip up. Tell me about your character motivations. What are you motivated by? Are you trying to be famous? Are you trying to make a name for yourself? You're trying to get money? Stuff like that. Tell me about an item, a trinket, heirloom, something like that has significant meaning to you, that maybe you lost at some point, or maybe you never found and you're still looking for. The idea behind this question is, I think it would be a really easy and not so heavy-handed way of getting characters a reason to continue working together. Maybe once they bump into each other in town or in a safe house somewhere, one character sees that another one has that thing that they've been looking for, or one that looks just like it. Now it's like, hey, why do you have my great-grandfather's medallion? What the hell, man? Stuff like that. Hopefully that doesn't mean roll initiative and player versus player, but I think it would be an easy way to tie them together. So we're not just going like, hey, you guys are all adventurers hired by the same person, so you're working together. That's kind of how most of these adventures start. I don't want to do that. And then lastly, if I am having a campaign, and lastly for tonight, I am going to keep adding to this. But lastly for tonight, if I am having a campaign where gods are sort of lesser in power and they're just kind of everywhere that you can go talk to, I need to know, like, well, who do you follow? What god's important to you that I need to have ready, and I can start to develop a personality for, and maybe coming up with a voice for them, some things that they know and don't know, that sort of stuff. So I think about at the half-hour mark, I'm going to wrap it there. I don't know how long these are going to be in the future. It's a lot on the vocal cords to talk for an hour, so I probably won't have more hour-long D&D prep sessions. I'll keep it short and to the point, hopefully, but we will have more in this series. Maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, we will see. And as I mentioned, I do have ideas for other D&D related content. Maybe we will have even a full-on review of Light of Xerixis. We'll see. But I think that's going to do it for now. I'm going to wrap here. If you like this, you want to see more of it, please subscribe, let me know, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for joining me at Spellhaven.